Holo Ads are the future of advertising. In combination with AI algorithms, which gather client and user preferences, holographic and augmented reality-based AI-driven ads are the near future and becoming the now. The technology and the artificial intelligence algorithms necessary to bring augmented reality-based and holographic projection-based ads and OBM, that is to say object-based media, interactive consumer content, to the real world is here, and so are we at the forefront of the new revolution of interactive augmented reality object-based media creation and consumption. This is going to change the world in how we perceive and interact with reality, and the future of multimedia, advertising, and augmented reality-based holographic OBM. With the advent of AI, user data collection, object-based interactive media, AR and VR, and the eventual removal of headsets through holographic projection, that is to say AR instead of VR, is more apt for advertising. VR is good for gaming, content consumption, with advertising in VR 3D, using applications such as Unity. HoloAds is a word that will become as common knowledge to the public as the movie Ready Player Go and Ridley Scott's movie Blade Runner. With Elon Musk's Neuralink project, we see the beginning of AR integration with our own inner virtual realities, and this is the future of advertising, social networking, and data collection. There will come a day soon when you walk down the aisle of the supermarket, and the supermarket is a smart building in a smart city. It knows you like M&Ms, and as you pass the M&Ms, a horde of life-size ones appear in front of you and do a dance to remind you that you like them, and to buy some for your son, of course, because he likes them too. As holographic AR disappears and is very immersive and interactive, the technology awaits, reaching the number of projectors in public places as we have CCTV in the present. Whoever masters the hardware part of this new industry will also become one of the richest companies on earth, as will the advertising media corporations who manage this kind of interactive, holographic, artificial intelligence-driven, targeted advertising. This is a kind of advertising where the customer can actually speak with and interact with the product, which, through artificial intelligence and the knowledge it has gathered about the user it is interacting with, will be able to adapt and use generative learning to be able to make a sale or a subscription or whatever the goal of the advertiser is. This is the end of the world as we know it, and the transformation and the next step in evolution of humanity. And so the merging of man and machine, our genes, and how genetic evolutionary processes such as our genes and our DNA are going to react and or adapt to this unprecedented evolutionary step in our human evolution, our human story. And how this is going to happen, and if companies are going to abuse this, how information is going to be shared once we have these implants and these add-ons and these neuromancer cyberpunk-like improvements, not just things like pacemakers for our heart, but things like infrared and ultraviolet sensors for our eyes, or extra macro zoom, far zoom lenses, and let's say telescopic fingernails with poison injectors for espionage and for, of course, hired assassins, and all of the deadly and dangerous hardware and software that is going to be put on the marketplace once we merge with cyber technology, robotics, Android technology, and artificial intelligence, which predicts a semi-dystopian future. That just as there are always circumvention measures, just like on the internet, nothing can be really secured. It can only be well hidden and encrypted, if clever enough, but that can be de-encrypted and also found, and everything is available. It's just like a bookshop. Everything's on the shelf. You just have to know which shelf which book is on and on which page the information you're looking for is on, but everything is open. And so with these emerging technologies, as the benefits will arise, so will also the dangers, such as being able to control physical machinery through the software that controls them, because they are all connected to the internet and to various services and service providers who share their information with third parties, not all of whom are ethical. That this can be used for us or against us, and that the current trend in extreme advertising and marketing and the capitalist use of the internet and how what people call the clear net has become. For example, Google only indexes about 10% of what is actually on the internet, and most of it is inaccessible unless you use a Tor browser, because it's not .com, it's .onion. They call it the dark web because they have stuff that doesn't exist anymore, some like the Silk Road, which sold drugs online and stuff, which was not good. But it also has free-speaking forums, which are not allowed to be indexed in the main ClearNet search engines. And so just as on the internet, it is censored, and Google is an advertising machine, not a search engine, an advertising engine with search. It's commercial, and it's the main portal through which you have to access the whole internet, and you can't access the whole internet through it. So in the same way, when you start using add-ons and sharing with third parties, when you become a cybernetic human, a transhuman, then we should consider these dangers and aspects and manage these risks properly by considering what they might be and how to counteract them before they happen. That these add-ons, which we will be implanting with synthetic organs and prosthetics, which will be controlled by apps on our telephone and artificial intelligence implanted through things like Elon Musk's Neuralink, which I approve of the project, by the way, in contrary to other projects of other companies. But that most of these add-ons and features which you will be able to blend with artificial intelligence, robotics, prosthetics, and synthetics will be from service providers, and these service providers will share with third parties, and they will use the information which you use every day through these apps and these applied hardware and software add-ons, which will be possessed by us humans when we merge with artificial intelligence, robotics, prosthetics, and synthetics. And man becomes machine, and machine becomes man. And the problem is not how this is going to benefit us to become superhumans, or transhumans, as people are calling it, transhumanism. Rather, if the technology that brings transhumanism will cause people to use services, implants, and artificial intelligence driven systems and programs to commit unethical, illegal, or harmful activities. And also, if governments and companies will abuse it by incepting the apps, add-ons, and hardware which we use to merge with technology, as man becomes half machine, half human, half biological, half machine, it's inevitable, and it's already happened. It's already happening. That there are many security issues which should be addressed, and how one is going to exercise control over individual companies and look at their code, which is supposed to be private and patented, and make sure that there are no algorithms which are collecting data and who they are sharing with and what is being done with the data. This is going to be very hard to control, never mind write legislation about. And this is one of the biggest problems of the internet, that it is a wild west that cannot be controlled, and that legislation will never catch up with the acceleration rate of technology and the legal, social, and other issues which it brings up for humanity at the rate we are advancing in our technological advancements in deep learning, artificial intelligence, robotics, prosthetics, and mobile technology, and using apps to control them with Internet of Things, smart homes, smart cities, smart devices. And so the question is for governments and companies and those who need risk management is, what are these risks? And how can we list them all? And how do they relate to each other? Because the terrible fact is that they are not separate risks. They are interconnected because they share the data with each other. And the different companies and the different agencies crunch the data for different reasons in different ways, and use topics and categories with artificial intelligence to categorize people into various kinds of personalities, which is judgmental and often proved through modern artificial intelligence in its current state of the art to be fallible. And so first, the outdated plan for failure when giving risk management would be to use the theory which was given in 2018, which is already quite a long time ago considering the fast advance of AI through deep learning in the last couple of years. Paul Barber, chief scientist of Lexalytics, wrote, "AI is the large sum of a complicated IT problem, and with it come the same concerns and requirements. Your network might go down, a server might fail, or a machine may experience a hiccup or go down through a DDoS attack, or other unimagined reasons. All of the hardware and software issues that are standard in IT, and I would like to add the IT/OT, the IT of things, meaning internet, IT, mobile controlled devices in the house, smart home devices, and stuff like the Iranian nuclear factory that was hacked, and the software that controlled it was used to actually affect the physical machinery, which is what the danger is." And the problem is, of course, the outdated plan for failure here does not take into consideration that not only can people now hack into devices, which is the first of one of the many risks which should be managed by governments and companies and nuclear plant owners and owners of any artificial intelligence, computer controlled, internet connected system or business or agency should use that these things are interconnected now. They are not just apps that you can buy for a government or a company. They are apps which you have terms of service, and they share this with third parties. And some of the information that can be shared can be used by clever people, even though the people who share it might not realize, for circumvention and corporate spying, government spying, hacking, and all sorts of things like influencing devices and even taking down the electricity of a whole city or even a continent, which is very, very concerning indeed. So this is one risk which one would need to manage, a very serious one, and one which is known about, but how to risk manage it has not yet been taught, or no risk management advice has yet been given by any true consultant with true knowledge. And so, what is the solution to manage the risk of sensitive data being accessed, crunched and analyzed by third parties, known and unknown, in order to commit harmful acts possibly, or other forms of cybercrimes, or to make corporate crimes under civil law and under criminal law? The way to solve this, of course, is through legislation. So what is the problem with legislation and AI? The inability of legislation through the slow and current bureaucratic, due parliamentary process of passing laws cannot address the number of agendas arising with smart tech, which is moving and advancing at an incredible rate, perhaps 100 times that of the ability of the parliamentary lawmakers to write laws to cover all the issues safely and securely, especially when we consider that lawmakers do not understand IT, Internet of Things, and private network security, and their employees are highly untrained and vulnerable to social engineering attacks, which can then enable more serious and damaging attacks. The inability of legislation through the slow and current bureaucratic, due parliamentary process of passing laws can never address the number of agendas arising with smart tech, which is moving and advancing at a rate perhaps 100 times that of the ability of the parliamentary lawmakers who write laws to cover all the issues safely and secure. Especially when we consider that lawmakers do not understand IT matters, the Internet, or private network security, and their employees are highly untrained and vulnerable to social engineering attacks, which can then enable more serious and damaging attacks. The problem is in the tardiness of writing new legislation that is specific enough to gather all areas of tech, terms of service, and above all, big data gathering and mutual sharing to third parties, which makes it impossible to legislate to keep up with the advancements in AI, with deep learning, and the agendas which new technologies and products on the public marketplaces present, which may enable circumvention of state regulations, public safety, health issues, or even serious matters such as cybercrime and even terrorism and personal privacy. The disappearance of the paid education system and sovereign individualism becoming the new alternative for an anarchic but orderly society without rule and governance is highly likely, unless the powers that be take all, but not just some, of the interconnected measures to prevent this interlinked process, which I call an algorithm, of societal downfall. And once again, as history has shown to be always true, the end of yet another great human civilization will occur. But the end of one civilization will, of course, give rise to a new one, which we must ask ourselves, is this good for us? And would we think differently if we were already changed from biological beings into biological, blended with artificial intelligence, controlled and assisted bionic and cybernetic technology, would we think the same, or would we think differently? In order to consider this, I think we shall now watch 3 videos to assist us in understanding the speed and the level of accelerated advancement that is changing the face of society faster than lawmakers can write laws for, and faster than we can even keep up with knowing about, and how much humans need to depend on the current system of rule and governance to exist in peace and happiness with an affluent, or at least comfortable, meaning you have food and all of the resources you need for life, even if money doesn't exist, and comfortable lifestyle. And so we shall begin with the first video now. And to start with that, we will watch the first video, which is called The Incredible Inventions That Can Be Created with Intuitive AI, which is very enjoyable indeed and will blow your minds.
How many of you are creatives? Designers, engineers, entrepreneurs, artists, or maybe you just have a really big imagination? Show of hands. Okay, that's most of you. I have some news for us creatives. Over the course of the next 20 years, more will change around the way we do our work than has happened in the last 2,000. In fact, I think we're at the dawn of a new age in human history. Now, there have been 4 major historical eras defined by the way we work. The hunter-gatherer age lasted several million years. And then the agricultural age lasted several thousand years. The industrial age lasted a couple of centuries. And now the information age has lasted just a few decades. And now today, we're on the cusp of our next great era as a species. Welcome to the augmented age. In this new era, your natural human capabilities are going to be augmented by computational systems that help you think, robotic systems that help you make, and digital nervous system that connects you to the world far beyond your natural senses. Let's start with cognitive augmentation. How many of you are augmented cyborgs? I would actually argue that we're already augmented. Imagine you're at a party and somebody asks you a question that you don't know the answer to. If you have one of these, in a few seconds, you can know the answer. But this is just a primitive beginning. Even Siri is just a passive tool. In fact, for the last 3.5 million years, the tools that we've had have been completely passive. They do exactly what we tell them and nothing more. Our very first tool only cut where we struck it. The chisel only carves where the artist points it. And even our most advanced tools do nothing without our explicit direction. In fact, to date, and this is something that frustrates me, we've always been limited by this need to manually push our wills into our tools, like literally using our hands, even with computers. But I'm more like Scotty in Star Trek. I want to have a conversation with the computer, right? I want to say, computer, let's design a car. And the computer shows me a car. And I say, no, more fast-looking and less German. And bang, the computer shows me an option. Now, that conversation might be a little ways off. It's actually probably less than many of us think. But right now, we're working on it. Tools are making this leap from being passive to being generative. Generative design tools use a computer and algorithms to synthesize geometry, to come up with new designs all by themselves. All it needs are your goals and your constraints. I'll give you an example. In the case of this aerial drone chassis, all you would need to do is tell it something like it has 4 propellers, you want it to be as lightweight as possible, and you need it to be aerodynamically efficient. And then what the computer does is it explores the entire solution space. Every single possibility that solves and meets your criteria. Millions of them. It takes big computers to do this. But it comes back to us with designs that we, by ourselves, never could have imagined. And the computer is coming up with this stuff all by itself. No one ever drew anything, and it started completely from scratch. And by the way, it's no accident that the drone body looks just like the pelvis of a flying squirrel. It's because the algorithms are designed to work the same way that evolution does. Now what's exciting is we're starting to see this technology out in the real world. We've been working with Airbus for a couple of years on this concept plane for the future. Now it's a ways out still, but just recently we used a generative design AI to come up with this. This is a 3D printed cabin partition that's been designed by a computer. It's stronger than the original, yet half the weight. And it'll be flying in the Airbus A320 later this year. So computers can now generate, they can come up with their own solutions to our well-defined problems. But they're not intuitive. They still have to start from scratch every single time. And that's because they never learn, unlike Maggie. Maggie's actually smarter than our most advanced design tools. What do I mean by that? If her owner picks up that leash, Maggie knows with a fair degree of certainty that it's time to go for a walk. And how did she learn? Well, every time the owner picked up the leash, they went for a walk. And Maggie did 3 things. She had to pay attention, she had to remember what happened, and she had to retain and create a pattern in her mind. Interestingly, that's exactly what computer scientists have been trying to get AIs to do for the last 60 or so years. Back in 1952, they built this computer that could play tic-tac-toe. Big deal. Then 45 years later, in 1997, Deep Blue beats Kasparov at chess. In 2011, Watson beats these 2 humans at Jeopardy, which is much harder for a computer to play than chess is. In fact, rather than working from predefined recipes, Watson had to use reasoning to overcome his human opponents. And then, a couple of weeks ago, DeepMind's AlphaGo beats the world's best human at Go, which is the most difficult game that we have. In fact, in Go, there are more possible moves than there are atoms in the universe. So in order to win, what AlphaGo had to do was develop intuition. And in fact, at some points, AlphaGo's programmers didn't understand why AlphaGo was doing what it was doing. And things are moving really fast. I mean, consider, in the space of a human lifetime, computers have gone from a child's game to what's recognized as the pinnacle of strategic thought. What's basically happening is computers are going from being like Spock to being a lot more like Kirk. Right? From pure logic to intuition. Would you cross this bridge? Most of you are saying, oh, hell no. And you arrived at that decision in a split second. You just sort of knew that that bridge was unsafe. And that's exactly the kind of intuition that our deep learning systems are starting to develop right now. Very soon, you'll literally be able to show something that you've designed to a computer, and it'll look at it and say, sorry, homie, that'll never work, you have to try again. Or you could ask it if people are going to like your next song, or your next flavor of ice cream. Or, much more importantly, you could work with a computer to solve a problem that we've never faced before. For instance, climate change. We're not doing a very good job on our own. We could certainly use all the help we can get. That's what I'm talking about, technology amplifying our cognitive abilities so we can imagine and design things that we were simply out of our reach as plain old, unaugmented humans. So, what about making all of this crazy new stuff that we're going to invent and design? I think the era of human augmentation is just as much about the physical world as it is about the virtual intellectual realm. So how will technology augment us? In the physical world, robotic systems. Okay, there's certainly a fear that robots are going to take jobs away from humans, and that is true in certain sectors. But I'm much more interested in this idea that humans and robots working together are going to augment each other and start to inhabit a new space. This is our applied research lab in San Francisco, where one of our areas of focus is advanced robotics. specifically human-robot collaboration. And this is Bishop, one of our robots. And as an experiment, we set it up to help a person working in construction doing repetitive tasks. Tasks like cutting out holes for outlets or light switches in drywall. So Bishop's human partner can tell him what to do in plain English and with simple gestures, kind of like talking to a dog, and then Bishop executes on those instructions with perfect precision. We're using the human for what the human is good at, right? Awareness, perception, and decision-making, and we're using the robot for what it's good at, precision and repetitiveness. Here's another cool project that Bishop worked on. The goal of this project, which we called the Hive, was to prototype the experience of humans, computers, and robots all working together to solve a highly complex design problem. The humans acted as labor. They cruised around the construction site, they manipulated the bamboo, which, by the way, because it's a non-isomorphic material, is super hard for robots to deal with. But then the robots did this fiber winding, which was almost impossible for a human to do. And then we had an AI that was controlling everything. It was telling the humans what to do, it was telling the robots what to do, and keeping track of thousands of individual components. What's interesting is building this pavilion was simply not possible without human, robot, and AI augmenting each other. Okay, I'll share one more project. This one's a little bit crazy. We're working with Amsterdam-based artist Joris Laarman and his team at MX3D to generatively design and robotically print the world's first autonomously manufactured bridge. So Joris and an AI are designing this thing right now as we speak in Amsterdam, and when they're done, we're going to hit go, and robots will start 3D printing in stainless steel, and then they're going to keep printing without human intervention until the bridge is finished. So as computers are going to augment our ability to imagine and design new stuff, robotic systems are going to help us build and make things that we've never been able to make before. But what about our ability to sense and control these things? What about a nervous system for the things that we make? Our nervous system, the human nervous system, tells us everything that's going on around us. But the nervous system of the things we make is rudimentary at best. For instance, a car doesn't tell the city's public works department that it just hit a pothole at the corner of Broadway and Morrison. A building doesn't tell its designers whether or not the people inside like being there. And the toy manufacturer doesn't know if a toy is actually being played with, how and where, and whether or not it's any fun. Look, I'm sure that the designers imagined this lifestyle for Barbie when they designed her, right? But what if it turns out that Barbie's actually really lonely? If the designers had known what was really happening in the real world with their designs, the road, the building, and Barbie, they could have used that knowledge to create an experience that was better for the user. Now, what's missing is a nervous system connecting us to all of the things that we design, make, and use. What if all of you had that kind of information flowing to you from the things you create in the real world? With all of the stuff we make, we spend a tremendous amount of money and energy, in fact, last year about $2 trillion, convincing people to buy the things that we've made. But if you had this connection to the things that you design and create, after they're out in the real world, after they've been sold or launched or whatever, we could actually change that and go from making people want our stuff to just making stuff that people want in the first place. The good news is we're working on digital nervous systems that connect us to the things we design. We're working on one project with a couple of guys down in Los Angeles called the Bandito Brothers and their team. And one of the things these guys do is build insane cars that do absolutely insane things. These guys are crazy, in the best way. And what we're doing with them is taking a traditional race car chassis and giving it a nervous system. So we instrumented it with dozens of sensors. And then we put a world-class driver behind the wheel, took it out to the desert, and drove the hell out of it for a week. And the car's nervous system captured everything that was happening to the car. We captured 4 billion data points, all of the forces that it was subjected to. And then we did something crazy. We took all of that data and plugged it into a generative design AI that we call Dreamcatcher. So what do you get when you give a design tool a nervous system and you ask it to build you the ultimate car chassis? You get this. This is something that a human could never have designed, except a human did design this. But it was a human that was augmented by a generative design AI, a digital nervous system, and robots that can actually fabricate something like this. So if this is the future, the augmented age, and we're going to be augmented cognitively, physically, and perceptually, what will that look like? What is this wonderland going to be like? I think we're going to see a world where we're moving from things that are fabricated to things that are farmed, where we're moving from things that are constructed to that which is grown. We're going to move from being isolated to being connected, and we'll move away from extraction to embrace aggregation. I also think we'll shift from craving obedience from our things to valuing autonomy. Thanks to our augmented capabilities, our world is going to change dramatically. We're going to have a world with more variety, more connectedness, more dynamism, more complexity, more adaptability, and of course, more beauty. The shape of things to come will be unlike anything we've ever seen before. Why? Because what will be shaping those things is this new partnership between technology, nature, and humanity. That, to me, is a future well worth looking forward to. Thank you all so much.
Generative design lets you design things that weren't possible to design before. So the convergence of cloud computing, new materials, advanced manufacturing, and these new generative design tools are opening a new world up for designers to think and explore designs that really couldn't be done before. You speak in the language of goals and constraints. Basically, you frame the problem in terms of what you want the function to be of a design, and the computer generates objects to fulfill those designs. You get ideas out of left field as a designer where you're like, I would have never gone that direction. That's really interesting. I'm not sure if I even want to pursue it, but this is opening up my space of possibilities. The HackRod project, so we just took an off-the-shelf race chassis and put 56 sensors on the tension points of the chassis. The HackRod team drove that thing out in the desert under extreme conditions.
From there, that data was analyzed and input into one of our generative design systems, Dreamcatcher, and a new chassis was grown.
So this is one of the first times that data has been able to be gathered in the field on performance, fed back into the design to improve the design. So that's really a groundbreaking exploration.
As these things become easier, there are going to be more entrants in every market. 3 kids in a dorm room can start a car company. And what does that mean to the traditional car manufacturers? It means that they've really got to be looking at how they can start to adopt this stuff today.
The human brain can hold 5 or 6 variables at a time. The computer doesn't have that limit. So with generative design, what you're trying to do is put all these conflicting and dependent variables together, have the computer think about what are the optimal options, and present those back to the user. What I really think is unique about the elbow chair is that we're considering the manufacturing in CNC. So rather than taking everything to an additive output, putting constraints in for CNC machinery for milling was an important part of just realizing a beautiful and functional design, and using wood as a material just had a beautiful aesthetic output. What are the goals and constraints? Well, there's some weight, there's some balance, there's do you want the chairs to be able to stack? Letting the computer decide and give you hundreds of different options on that fit your preference, including the materials that you intend to build, I think was just a great creative expression in furniture design.
Today we spend about 90% of our awake time indoors. And research shows that our indoor environment is not good for us, it's not healthy for us.
Automation is still sort of in its infancy in terms of the creative tasks. We haven't seen any big changes to the underlying design process.
90% of our industry is still not realizing that a lot of their jobs will be lost. They have to educate themselves how they can innovate their own business.
My name is Nicholas Madsen, and I'm an interior designer, and I work at Superlab.
My name is Axel Nordin, and I'm an assistant professor at Lund University at the Department for Design Sciences.
My name is Ilke Voogd. I'm from Work and People Analytics, which is an employee effectiveness platform that measures how people do their work.
Architect interior designers, when we're doing projects today, we have so many regulations to look into and make sure that they are being followed through a project. We forget a lot of times that the human aspect, that there are actually going to be humans working there.
Yeah, I think real estate and architecture have been lacking behind. If you look at some of the other industries, it still takes 3 months to do the program of requirements or the requirements coloring. It still takes 3 till 6 months to design a building, and still takes 2 years to build it, for example. It's a lot of manual labor, but not a lot of solutions that have been brought up digitally or automated.
So we think with algorithms and good data, an artificial intelligence could do a lot of the boring work for us. So interior designers could spend more time on aesthetics and the human and the soft values in a project.
We hope that we can actually make this a fairly computable problem, so to speak. And hopefully with the algorithm that we're developing, we can find an optimal solution.
One of the ideas was, how would an office space look if an algorithm or artificial intelligence would design it for us humans?
My role in this project is to develop the algorithms that connects the behavioral data to the actual floor plans that you get out in the end.
We took the data from VPA, that's human behavioral data, and we put it into the algorithm and let the algorithm create the floor plan. We created an office space from a human perspective instead of first creating the floor plan and then apply humans afterwards. But to take it to the next level was definitely to bring in human behavioral data because then it was designed from a human perspective for humans. And that created a whole new level of this project.
We have the knowledge of hundreds of thousands of people that work in companies, in all kinds of different companies. We provide the data that the artificial intelligence needs to learn how to come up with good designs or solutions.
One of the experiments that we did, we just told the algorithms to use the square meters of different rooms and set up parameters of how many rooms and what sizes. But we didn't have outer structure. So what happened was that the algorithms created a whole new architectural world basically out of the algorithms that we would never come up with.
We get results that look more like old villages, for instance, in terms of how the offices are placed. And of course, it's interesting to see all these quirky placements and quirky room shapes that move around in a very unintuitive way. And it actually looks like the rooms are fighting each other over being in the best spot. And in a way they are. They actually represent the goals and the behaviors of the employees. And based on that, they try to find the right position for their employees that they represent.
Working with algorithms to create new floor plans for an office space is definitely the way to go in the future.
By automating this whole process of gathering the requirements, designing the environment, we can do it probably 5 times faster, 5 times smarter, and probably 5 times cheaper, because we're not using all the architects anymore, we're not using all the space planners anymore, because a lot of the artificial intelligence can learn how it has to be done by itself. A lot of the jobs that we have right now, workplace strategy, workplace planners, space planners, architects, a lot of these roles will this solve, because a lot of automation and a lot of available data can be analyzed in a different way, better and faster than it is now. But presenting it to the group of people that might be automated is always a tough case.
It's an interesting contrast because you have, on one hand, this very soft human data that we want to use to make a better work environment. And on the other hand, we have this cold hard artificial intelligence that will make a better situation for humans in the end. And I'd like to think that, yes, it's possible in some fairly constrained domains, but perhaps not in general. So we won't have a general intelligence in many, many years. But for products like this, it might very well be possible in a couple of years.
Doing this project is, of course, also showing that things have to be different. We want to be leaders and not followers in this in this business. And somebody has to take the lead. And we're one of the organizations together with this group that try to really disrupt the industry, to innovate things that have been done always in the same way, but and try to do it completely differently.
Can we turn this ill-defined architectural problem into a well-defined problem using behavioral data, employee preferences, and inputting that into an algorithm?
Can we create something better for us humans in the future with new technology?
Perhaps it's possible, perhaps it's not, but in the very worst case scenario, at least we have something that can handle this data and perhaps do a little bit of number crunching on it and offload some of these boring tasks from the architect, so he or she can actually work on the more creative tasks and focus on that instead.
So the problem with the current work environment is that people have very little control over it. Although they know best how they work, people know their own behaviors best, the way they work, but they have very little possibilities to change their work environment. Things are very arranged in a very hierarchical way. There's facilities, maybe even on a corporate level, that provides you with all the stuff that you need, but there's very little control that you have over creating your own environment that makes you most productive.
Well, we can see we're just scratching the surface, so we have no idea where we're going to end up. But that it will be exciting and we will learn a lot, that's something for sure. Hopefully this project will end up in a good tool, in a software tool that could optimize both time and money. And maybe this could be a future tool for architects, interior designers to work with. But we have no idea where we're ending up.
Risk management first video regarding risk management to do with smart tech and the dangers of IT hacking and device hacking, software hacking, sharing of big data, and how that can be a danger with government used apps, company apps, and services offered with add-ons. Apart from the other issues mentioned with the melding of humanity, the future evolution of humanity being with artificial intelligence, with add-ons and apps and extra features which you will be able to supplement your AI or your prosthetics or your robotic implants with, and the dangers that these imply, because no corporate or government risk management course, be it on Udemy or Lynda or any of these other online tutor courses, are giving this kind of information. So this course is not to tell you what things to look at to risk manage according to the old school methods as written in 2016 and 2018, rather to prepare for the emerging technologies and the risks that not are just existing in the moment, but are going to arise, and to foresee them, and to give you insights into being a real risk management consultant who has insights, not just uses a formula which he learned from some Udemy course. And this course is going to be on Udemy or one of those similar networks. But it's not going to give you useless information. You can find lots of that detailed information, yes, but what you're going to get from me is much more insightful and inspiration-giving ideas as to what topics you need to know about, understand, and know the interrelationships between in order to risk manage and know how to advise how to manage the risks of such matters with your clients. Yeah? And so this issue, this topic will continue in the next video, and it's connected with many other folders which have different topics but are all related. Just like all the numbers on a roulette wheel are related, because once they've been through all the numbers, that is all the topics you need to understand. Then the ball falls, the penny drops into the middle, and you come to the point, the central point. But to come to the central point of risk management, be it corporate, economic, social, health risk management, governmental, rule and governance, economic, or all of those in conjunction, or scientific, or astronomical, space travel, whatever kind of risk management, engineering risk managements, mining risk managements, it doesn't matter. You need to know about the technologies, the dangers, the competition, the future of such industries, the death and birth of industries, and this will inspire you how to give proper risk management that will blow the minds of your clients, I believe. It is, in my opinion, that the end of the world as we knew it has already happened. We just haven't noticed. And I could make hours of such presentations to demonstrate that. And that the new world that is to come and is coming, and if it's to be ruled by any kind of appointed authority or not, that's yet to be ascertained. And through the study of risk and the science of multiple cross-referenced risk management, which take not only economics and corporate risk and banking risk and such things into consideration, rather all aspects and reasons of why a human civilization rises, prospers, declines, and disappears. Everything. The social aspects, the economic aspects, the rule and governance aspects, the legal aspects, the economic aspects, the logistic aspects, the rate of growth, and so on, the medical aspects, and so on and so on, the technological aspects, how we applied the technologies, and so on. And of course, the human ethics, social ethics. And plus taking into consideration the possibility of current advanced technology in the present day, which might be changing the rules if we study history as an example of how civilizations rise, prosper, and decline and fall, as we live with other rules than those we've seen, as history has shown civilizations to fall in the past. And those other reasons, which are unforeseen perhaps, may be at hand. And so the question is not the fall, because it's already happening. The question is, who, if anybody, will rule thereafter? And which is better, to have rule or no rule? So, where does it all go from here? Well, we're just going to have to wait and see in the next video from Anonymous Asia in this course on risk management, on how to evade or cause the fall of the current civilization and system of rule and governance based on paid education, paid service industry enslavement for wages that are much less than the money you generate for the work you do, indebtment, retaking of houses in your possessions, taxation, paid education for paid employment instead of owning your own business, and the fiat monetary system, and the immense imbalance in wealth that exists, and the fact that the amount of lack of human rights in the modern world is not any less than it was in medieval times, makes one think that perhaps it is time for a change, and for a system that does not involve a fiat monetary system of exchange and trade and competitiveness through the capitalist competitive system and the current system of law, order, rule and governance, and the economics which finance this system are starting to fall through sovereign individualism. And so we shall have a look at where it goes from here, unless the powers that be risk manage the problem to avoid it, which they are doing, and I shall explain what measures they are taking and explain some of the measures that they have forgotten to take. Anonymous Asia, signing off.